When the last time Donald Trump was in power in the United States, a new chapter was being written in the Indo-US bilateral relations. Once again, Donald Trump is in power and taking his country to a direction which is visibly different from the direction in which Joe Biden administration was taking it. Seizing the opportunity, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is there in the United States at the right time. There are some big headline grabbing news that the two have made at the United States, different forums of the United States, one of them being the extradition of terror accused Tahawwur Rana. Then there is Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Elon Musk, who is not only an American businessman, but also now a part of Department of Government Efficiency, which has famously recently cut down US aid that was being used allegedly in disruptive activities across the world, which might have affected India as well. To understand the finer nuances of diplomacy at play behind the scenes, we have with us a veteran diplomat, former ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, who will throw light into the intricacies involved in getting these deals, getting this big agreements in place. Welcome to the show, Ashokji.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Ashokji, of course, the biggest headline of the moment is extradition of Tahawwur Rana. But when he was very much in news in the Indian media, another name was doing the rounds, which was of David Headley, and it was being said that he was a double agent. Now, this must have been a very tricky question for the United States, because if this guy was dealing with a double agent, he runs the risk of revealing certain secrets of the United States if he is interrogated in India. What do you say?
No, absolutely. I think that is the reason why India has been, the Indian agencies and the justice system has been very keen to get Tahawwur Rana on our territory so that he can be interrogated. And, the whole series of events behind the 26/11 attacks, that can be unraveled. We, of course, know that Pakistan was involved, David Headley was involved, how he had come to do recce here, what were the objectives, what were the means. But I think some loose ends that might be there, and Tahawwur Rana's presence and interrogation, I think, will be able to cross the T's and dot the I's and get a clear picture on the situation as it prevails. So I think this is a very significant move, and President Trump announced it, and he said that there are more to follow. So which means that, that is what Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri also said, that requests for extradition of some of the others have also been made. So hopefully in the near future, we can see some positive action on those also.
So what do you make of the recent news, under the aegis of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which has recently been formed in the United States? They have cut down drastically US aid that was going into different countries, including democratic and friendly nations like India, to foment disruptive activities in those countries. Perhaps even India might have been affected by it, let's say about a decade ago, when suddenly, out of nowhere, hundreds and hundreds of NGOs gathered to protest in the name of India against corruption, for example. And just recently, we've had this coup in Bangladesh, where it is said that it was perhaps St. Martin's Island, which the United States was eyeing, and since it did not get it, it just fomented the trouble. It instigated the youth who were already protesting. So do you think with US aid being cut drastically to foment trouble in different parts of the world, and then Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit at the nick of time, can you join the dots here and see something happening?
Okay, so let's look at it. I think basically when Mr. Trump came to office, he came to the office with a promise that he's going to do away with, number one, inefficiency in the system, in the government system there. And also he's going to do away with the deep state. As far as the deep state is concerned, the way they understood is all the people, the lefts, the liberals, the progressives, the all the others who had gathered together to against Donald Trump over these last 4 years in vilifying, in victimizing him. So that was the whole idea. I'm sure the idea would not have been that, all these agencies like USAID and so on and so forth, that they are acting against the interests of the host governments where they are working. Because basically, what the US government has said is that this was a waste of money. This was a waste of money of the US taxpayers.
That's
So
right.
that was the reason. But of course, it was used for, not only USAID, but I'm sure several other organizations used for underhand, undercover activities. What you mentioned about the like in Bangladesh, for instance, what Dr. Muhammad Yunus had said when he had gone to the US during the time of the UN General Assembly session last September. He said that this was a meticulously executed operation which had been going on for a long time, because we know that the Biden administration was not favorably disposed towards Sheikh Hasina government. So maybe it was USAID, maybe it was some of the others, because I'm sure just one agency does not have the capacity and the wherewithal to be able to get a regime change of this nature. I think at the grassroots level, it must have been many others who were also involved, about which when, as and when a serious investigation is carried out, we will get to know details. But yes, the ostensible reason for all these USAID and others is to provide help and aid and support for education, for health, and skilling and training and others. But of course, under cover of these activities, so much else would also be happening, which I really don't want to go into at the present moment.
Another tricky situation, another tricky question in the India US relations is the trade imbalance that Donald Trump keeps complaining about, and he is taking punitive measures against countries like China. Maybe that policy is not particularly directed towards India, but then India has also been mentioned in this regard. At the same time, if you think of the meeting of Prime Minister Modi with Elon Musk, who has his own business interests like the Tesla or let's say the SpaceX program, we have seen in the past, especially during the 2 years, 2 dreadful years of COVID 19, that an American company tried to sell its vaccine in India and it could not succeed. Similarly, even Tesla was not very successful in its initial attempt to enter India because these conditions on which his electric vehicles would be sold in India, he was not quite comfortable with that. How do you think Prime Minister Modi is going to balance national interest with the interests of the investor, potential investor?
Potential investor and also consumer and also climate change, because there are so many considerations for that. I
Right.
think as far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, we are quite certain that, for him, a national interest will come first and foremost, once and always. So, I think that one can be quite certain of that, the nothing is going to be done which will adversely impact upon the national interest. The second is, that there are conflicting requirements. We need electric vehicles to come into India and to come into India in a big way, because climate change is a challenge. It is a challenge for the whole world, but definitely with India population of this size, 1.4 billion people, growing at 7-8% per annum. So, the environmental challenges become all that much greater. But still, when Mr. Musk wanted his Tesla electric vehicles to come, he wanted them to be in finished condition. We were not prepared for that. We are not ready that, they should come, sell here, get all the profits and go out. If they have to come in, progressive manufacture, like we initially had the Maruti coming here, and progressively, increasingly manufacture. Maybe you can get SKD, semi-knockdown condition kits, completely knockdown conditions, but progressively there has to be a roadmap where you see that there are jobs being created, that there's technology being transferred here. So I think those were the conditions that were not met. And in future also, if Mr. Musk wants to come here, either with his Tesla or Space Link or whatever it is, I think he will have to abide by the conditions that the Indian government puts, which will be balanced conditions. It will be, benefit and advantage to the investor, to the one who's coming, bringing technology and all, but also not unduly, not adverse in terms of consequences for the local economy, local industry, and the local consumers.
Another sector of the economy which is of prime interest, and it has always been big, it has always been big on the US-India relations, which is the defense sector deal. And now we have the Aero India show going on in Bengaluru, where F-35 is being showcased, along with several of its competitors from Russia, France, Sweden, and other countries. Ashokji, it has been noticed over the decades that while India has purchased a whole lot of military equipment from the United States, it has never gone in for this F series fighter planes from the United States. We never bought F-16, we never bought F-18. Do you think F-35 has a chance? And from the American point of view, F-35 may not go through, particularly because India always puts forth this precondition of technology transfer, which Americans are not very comfortable with, unlike France, which transferred the technology for Rafale.
I think the Americans are also veering around to the position that, they will have to start transferring technology because all the other countries are doing so, and, they are in a competitive market. So initially we saw that, America was not offering F-35 to India because they said India has the S-400 anti-ballistic missile defense system from Russia, and it would be able to capture the signal of the F-35. So they were not particularly keen. So I don't know how there has been this change of mind and heart when Mr. Trump offered the F-35 to India. But the only competitor to F-35, as far as India is concerned, is the Su-57, because both of them are stealth fighters. Rafale or Gripen or any others are not in the same category. They are Generation 4 aircrafts, while these two are Generation 5 aircrafts. So I think India will take its own decision based on a variety of considerations: suitability, numbers required, the price, conditions, transfer of technology, and a whole host of considerations on the basis of which the final decision will be taken. But I think it is we are still quite far from that particular stage.
Right. India and the United States share some concerns about China. Trump has repeatedly been saying that the trade imbalance with China is not done. In the previous term of Prime Minister Modi, we saw a whole lot of Chinese apps being blacklisted and banned in the country. But beyond this commonality of interests against China, we also see some shared interests which are quite tricky. For example, early in 2024, it was reported that right now the Chinese supply lines are the only viable lines. Not only that, in the previous term of Donald Trump, we saw a trade war between the United States and China, which affected the whole world, including India. How do you think, sir, that Mr. Modi is going to handle the situation as far as making the United States do things against or for China that will be in the interest of India as well?
Yeah, I think as far as China is concerned, that is one factor that brings India and the United States together. There are many other factors, bilateral factors, which bring them together. You mentioned about defense, we We can talk about energy, we can talk about trade, we can talk about technology, we can talk about capital, we can talk about diaspora. There's so many, a whole host of reasons why India and the United States need to cooperate. But one of the contributory factors is China. Now, you have spoken only as far as trade is concerned. Trade is a problem for India because we are running a huge adverse balance of trade with China. It's a problem for the US because it is also running the biggest, the highest adverse balance of trade with the United States. The real problem is the political issue with both countries. China is, we have a disputed border, 3,488 kilometers. And China has been nibbling away at it and, till we stopped it in Doklam and also in Galwan. As far as United States is concerned, the issue is even more serious because what China wants to do is to develop itself in such a manner, whether it is technologically, economically, militarily, every sense of the word, so that it will displace the United States from its position of the hegemon of the world. And the United States knows it. So while there might be some tactical adjustments on trade, which are essential, but these two, in my view, are parallel tracks. That it is not that if you have satisfaction on the trade track, that you think that on the other, the political security strategic track also, you have some sort of a convergence. No. So I think that India and the United States will continue to be aligned together as far as, to deal with the rising cloud profile and aggressiveness of China.
So there has been a negative development of late, especially from the optics point of view. If you look at the way those Indians who were deported from the United States for parking there illegally, for staying there without authorization, the way they were treated, the issue was not particularly with their deportation, but the sight of them being chained or handcuffed wasn't, did not speak good of, a viable India-United States relations. You think Prime Minister Modi has raised this issue in the United States and done something about it?
Yeah, there was no specific mention made of this. It's not there in the joint declaration. I would not have expected this to be. It was not there in the presser. And that also, I think the statements I wouldn't have expected. But I'm sure it has been taken up at the highest level, and it has also been taken up by the External Affairs Minister with his counterpart. So I'm quite hopeful that when the next batch of the illegal migrants comes back to India, which I'm told is going to take place in the next few days, 16th or 17th of this month, then we should see them being transported in a much more humane condition, in a much more dignified condition.
Thanks a lot, Ashok ji, for your deep insights into the very nuanced positions of Indian diplomacy. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.